Muslim, we are Christian in the South. That's the big main thing, of course. There's other things that play role into the conflict of religion and agriculture. So I'm from South Sudan, and so as she was rightly put, so when the attack happened, I was young. I was about 6 or 7. I really don't know much about the world, but one thing, when we grew up, I grew up as a nomad. I call myself as a nomadic society, meaning, I mean, some of you, I'm gonna go back and forth this, you guys are millennial. When you grew up, I'm pretty sure if I ask you about what did you do when you were about 6 or 7, you probably say you played Mario Kart, blah, 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 video games. So me, my way of playing was grow up and make sure I look after the calf, the goat, and eventually the bigger cow. That's a typical, and get married and move next to your parents, and there's no nursing home, you stay there, okay? That's my typical grow up if I would have gone up there. But unfortunately, it was disrupted by the Civil War. And I want you to picture this. Our journey, and I don't have a map here, you guys probably good in geography. Our journey was not just simply take your time. It was a lot of pressure. Many, many factors contributed to our suffering. One is, of course, the northern Arabs coming after us. Two is, imagine this. You leave your village of Gainesville, and it's wiped out, and you are a young child, and sometimes you say, you know what, I'm gonna come back 3 to 4 days. And children, I keep asking, are we coming back to my cousin? And unfortunately, it turned 3 days to 7 days to a month to 4 months to Ethiopia, and eventually, as I will continue to come to America. But all that is to say there was a lot of factors. So we don't have enough food. The wild animals were the problem. Part of it too, how long can you walk? I mean, my cousin would carry me, and you have to grow up pretty quickly because you're 6 years old. You're walking 3 to 4 months to a country called Ethiopia. So if you're not dying being shot at and the airplane is bombing you, if you're not dying from those two, you're dying from starvation. If you're not dying from starvation, most likely being attacked by the animal. Those are, I just want you to picture, it was not an easy task. There's no cars. Matter of fact, there's no shoes like what I'm wearing. I think if you wear shoes at that time, it's a luxury. And so we try to make up some shoes with, it's basically leaf of trees, or if we have found a tire or anything that will cover your feet. It's just creative. We became very creative to try to protect our feet. But also remember, you are going through the train, the rainy season. It's a semi-arid desert, and so I'm saying all this at age 6. That's a lot to witness, and your sister being taken into slavery. You don't have your parents. I mean, it was a disaster. So a lot of us, the Lost Boy, it has been estimated, we start out with a large group of people, 27 to 30,000 from different villages. By the time we reach Ethiopia and Kenya, it was literally cut in half. We have 12,000. So a lot of people have died from moving. So as we move toward Ethiopia, we finally made it to Ethiopia, we stayed for a couple of years. After a couple of years, guess what happened? Civil wars erupted again in Ethiopia, so they had to kick us out. And thank you for reminding me. So you probably remember what the boys were talking about. It's a big river called River Gilo, where the Ethiopian army is shooting at us. Then you have infested crocodile river. Then you have young boys from the age of 5 to 15 that don't know how to swim. So it's a do or die situation. What do you do? So you had basically, if I think my colleague knows how to swim, out of fear, regardless of what, I'm gonna jump on top of that person. Obviously, if 15 of us, even if we know how to swim, we are drowning each other, not to mention if some people being carried away by the crocodile. And then once you cross to other side, it was not a big river, then you are now faced with the enemy that was chasing you from South Sudan to Ethiopia. They were already waiting you there. The good news is And this term is very important. When you are a refugee, we were a refugee in Ethiopia, meaning they cannot attack us. They can chase us. It's like going to Canada border. American can't do anything. It's a different jurisdiction. But once we came back to South Sudan, it's a cycle of violence again, bombing, no food. Some of us ended up drinking our own urine. You have no option. And I always tell, when I travel across the country, like, how often do we take things for granted? Just we have water, clean water. It's one thing we just have to be thankful for. I know it's not like $1 million, but some people don't have access to water, clean water. So a lot of people died in that river, over 2,000. That's the most casualty in that river. And then we're like, say, God, what's next? We are done. They will finish us. And so you have to continue walking and trek another more than 1,000 miles to a country called Kenya. And every time you move, it becomes a cycle. More death, more destruction. People are giving up. And if your cousin who's older happened to die or killed, that young man who cannot walk also died. So we became like, that's why they call it the Lost Boy. We band together. If you guys watch the movie called Peter Pan, that's how we got that name. But we finally made it through those atrocities, we finally made it to Kenya. And Kenya again was unique because one, we are there, but the enemy, whoever made it, enemy cannot attack. That's the good news. The another bad news in all these camps is you're prone to diseases. It's overcrowded, it's this lack of water and sanitation. Basically, let's just say this, it's like a big open prison, okay? You just stay there. The locals don't like you. You cannot even go there, and the local, if you have a small food rations that has been given you, the local are more likely to come back, they have guns, and rob you at the gunpoint. What do you do? As a refugee, people take advantage of you. Actually, a couple people got killed that way. So the food ration, let me just describe within the camp. So you have 14 days, given this food ration to literally, it will finish in 7 days. So one thing unique about the Lost Boys is our staying together. So what we used to do is, okay, so if we are one group, 4 of us here, we put our food ration, you have a little bit of lentil, you have potatoes, you have corn and wheat flour. It's not nutritionist, it's not really balanced, but there's nothing to eat more, whether balanced or not, a balanced diet, it doesn't matter. So we put our food together, my cousin and all this, and we have a schedule where you have to go fetch water. It's your turn today to cook. But the reality is those things will finish in 7 days. So what do you do after the food is finished? You cannot harvest, you cannot go shopping, you don't have money. You just have to wait. And it was so hard. A lot of people got sick. And to the point that I remember, as young as I was, I would go blind temporarily. I mean, some of you guys who are scientists probably know why. It's lack of micronutrients. It's lack of vitamin A. You see women who are pregnant are eating mud like crazy. And even if you're pregnant or not, they're still eating mud. Why? Because lack of vitamins. So we stayed there, but you know, sometimes you don't know how God works. And when you are hopeless, you just don't know when. Have you feel where you're just so you're just so done? You're like, I'm done. I don't care. But then somebody is gonna come and help you out of nowhere, and that's what I said. We, the Lost Boy, are grateful for the opportunity to start the process of coming to the United States. This process started in 1998, and I was reading. How did this came all about? Apparently it was somebody who worked at the refugees in the U.S. State Department. And I think this person must have visited us in the Kakuma refugee camp. And he wrote a strong letter to the Congress saying, if you bring these kids, they will be able to share their stories. I mean, it was just an advocacy, powerful speech. And you never know, sometimes animal one, you sometimes say, who will listen to me? You really don't know who will listen to you. So anyway, from that point, the Christian evangelical in this society really pushed hard for us to come and pass through the Congress. So it was a specific program designed for only us. I mean, how cool is that? We didn't even know. And they said it's the largest resettlement in American history. And so once they schedule it, In 1998, they came to us and said, like I'm telling you my story. Lawyer is there telling a story. We wrote it down. 2 years later, I didn't even know what happened. That time I couldn't even write. In 1998, I didn't know what happened. 2 years later, it's like, oh, you guys are going to America, and what has happened is you have a lawyer. It's really a probability. I mean, you have a lawyer who you tell your story, and once you tell your story, it depends if that lawyer nice or not. They will say, okay, you pass. And to pass actually is unique. They put your picture in the envelope. So we became smart too, in order to know, because you don't want to open and say you failed. So you have to tilt the envelope toward the sun. And if you can see, because you can see the picture toward the sun, it starts dancing. That's simply you're coming to America. If you don't see it, it's unfortunate for you. But it was, again, it's a probability of 3,889 ended up coming. A lot of people didn't come because September 11th affected it. But in that process, I want you to picture this, because I'm a big advocate of refugees too, is to understand, if any politician, anybody tell you that, oh, refugees just come and go there, it is tedious. It started in 1998, and once even I got through the interview, you have to be tested, and you better that you're not have communicable disease like HIV/AIDS or TB, any kind of, there's no HIPAA there. If you are sick from that, then you're not coming. So it is really a tedious process, even coming here. So anyway, fast forward, so God hear our prayers, and here we are coming to America. It was like a joke. I had no idea what to expect. I mean, they came, they have something called cultural orientation, welcome to USA, and where they have this booklet, and they expect us to learn America in 3 days. And I'm not even kidding you. They have ice, I don't know how they preserve it. And it's like in this class, you pass it around and you imagine how hot it is in Africa, and it's just ice, and we're freezing to death.